Hello everyone, a ton of you asked me questions over on my Discord, and today I will be answering all of them. There are a lot of questions, so they will all be timestamped in the description. Enjoy. First question, is hyperrolling still viable? And the answer is no. There are two reasons why. Reason 1, with the extra 1 cost being added, and the 1 cost odds being nerfed from 60 to 55%, hitting 1 cost 3 stars at level 4 is even harder now. And the second reason is that slow rolling at level 5 for 1 cost was always better than hyperrolling. And now with the odds being nerfed, slow rolling is just a lot better than hyperrolling. How static should your late game comp be? With the changes to resale value, is it better to be constantly changing? How do you value if Fizz is better than a synergy in your comp? The changes to resale value definitely matters. For example, selling infiltrators to put in mystics is a lot easier now. This question is more about how to identify what your comp needs to beat the players in the lobby. Let's pretend you're playing Brawler Blasters with Ziggs and GP. With this comp you have very little backline access. Therefore, if the remaining 2 players are 6-Orc Riven and Cybernetic players, their carries are all in the backline. In this example, it can be worth it to ditch the GP and Ziggs to run Echo and Fizz. This way you can deal with the enemy Vayne as well as the enemy Sorcerers. When it comes to whether synergies are helpful or not, scout the lobby and see. Say you're running Vanguards, but the remaining players have Last Whisper. That tells you that the Vanguard buff is getting very little value. Same thing if you're running 2 Celestials. If the enemy team has red buff and Morellos, you know the Celestial is only getting half the value. Question 3. What do you think is the comp that gets the most top 4s? In my opinion, it's Cybernetics. You usually will not get first with Cybers, you will mostly get 2nd or 3rd places at best. At the same time, you rarely go 8th with this comp. If you lose, you end up going 5th or 6th place most of the time. In other words, it's the best top 4 comp in the game right now. Question 4. When is losing econ for strength, either rolling or leveling, worth it? You want to spend money on the intervals where a lot of other people tend to level, such as on stage 3-2 where a lot of people level to 6, or the notorious 4-3 where almost everyone levels to 8 and rolls. Besides that, if you're getting low on HP and your board is a lot weaker than everyone else, you need to spend money to get stronger. Usually it's okay to roll once or twice at level 6, and sometimes you have to all in by leveling to 7 on either 3-5 or 4-1. Point is, if you feel weak and you're low on HP, you're going to bleed out if you don't spend money to get stronger. If you ever find yourself in one of these situations, you will be playing for top 6 most of the time. Question 5. How to play 4 Space Pirates? This is a 4 fun comp, as some people call it, meaning that it's not a viable comp in high elo. But if you want to play it, you need a fast 8 to find GP. You also need GA and 2 AP items for GP. The level 8 build will look something like this, where you have Jinx as a backup carry, or you can run Jhin as your backup carry. But if you want to just have fun and get as many components as possible, you run 4 Sorcerers with them. How long do you keep a losing streak, and how do you prepare to recover from it? You generally don't want to keep your losing streak longer than Wolves. From stage 4 and onwards, HP is a lot more valuable than your losing streak, as you start taking a lot more damage here. If you're starting to get lower than 50 HP in the mid game, you usually want to all in on level 7 depending on how much money you have. This is either done on 3-5 or 4-1. If you ecoed properly with your losing streak, you should be able to level and roll to about 20 to 30 gold on 3-5. This will most likely stabilize you until 4-3. In the early game, you will always try to lose the next 2 rounds if you lost the first 3. Then after Krugs, you want to start winning again. Question 7. When is the right time to switch away from a given composition into something different? The answer is when a comp is too contested or if you have better items for another comp that you have the units for. In the current meta, Jinx is very contested, so if you have better items for another comp, you want to pivot most of the time if you don't have Jinx yet. In most of my lobbies, there are around 3 to 4 people who want to play Jinx, so if I need to pivot, I play Astro Snipers or Cybers. At what point should you consider dumping all your gold in a last-ditch attempt to get what you need to survive? The answer is when you die in 1 or 2 turns, or if the lobby is insanely close where there are 3+ people who are lower than 10 health. In that scenario, a lot of people are going to roll to 0 and all in, so you want to do that as well. Unless you are like 50 or 40 HP, so you know you're going to survive at least 3 to 4 more turns. Question 9. Is there a point where you're holding too much gold in champions for both your transition comp and your main comp? The answer to this is that it will depend on the comp you're playing, but on stage 2 you don't want to be holding units that you're not going to be playing soon. For example, if this is your board on stage 2-5 and you have 7 gold, in that scenario, if you have a Vi on your bench, you really want to sell her to make 10 gold. Same thing in the mid game. If you're running Cybers and you want to pivot into Rebels, selling Yasuos and Ys to make 20, 30, 40 gold is something you want to do even though you need them later. The questions you have to ask yourself is, do I need this unit later in the game? Can I find this unit later? In what situations would I play this unit? You can easily find the Yi, Yasuo, and Vi later in the game, so selling them in the early and mid game is the play you want to make the vast majority of the time. The only exception is 1-cost units. They can be really hard to find once you hit level 8 and 9, so you generally want to hold on to those from stage 3 and onwards. Another exception is if someone is going for 3 stars of the units you need. For example, the 6 Blademaster comp wants 3-star Yi and Yasuo, so if a 6 BM player is in your lobby, holding on to at least 1 Yi and Yasuo is the play most of the time. Question 10. How to position to get the most value out of redemptions. In the early game you position like this, where you leave one unit in the front line that gets targeted by most of the enemy team. In the mid game you want to position like this. If the redemption is on a 1-cost, you might want to protect it a bit more so it doesn't die right away. In the late game you want to just have it in the front line somewhere. Question 11. How to deal with bad streaks. If you mean you are on a big losing streak and you're weak, then you want to play for top 6. In that case you want to roll at 7 on either 3-5 or 4-1 to stabilize. If you mean you're losing a lot of games in a row, you want to take a break. If I go bottom 4 2 games in a row, I always take a break for at least 1 hour before I queue up again. If you still want to keep playing, I advise playing on a smurf. If you're losing a lot due to tilting, I have made a video on how to manage tilt in-game that I recommend you watch, link in the description. Question 12. How to recognize mistakes in your own games. The best way to do this is to record your games and watch over the games where you think you made the most mistakes. The problem with this is that you don't know what the optimal play is most of the time. Say you have 2 viable options. In the game you went with option 1, and you say to yourself, option 2 would be better here. Now there might be a third option that you're not seeing and that would be the best. And if that is the case, watching your own VODs might not even be worth your time. The best ways to improve on your mistakes is to watch pro TFT players on Twitch and to get coaching from a better player than yourself. Question 13. What do you think about Irelia this patch? With Vayne being added to set 3.5, we will run her as the primary carry in cybernetics. Irelia is still a good unit, but where she shines is as an anti-infiltrator unit. When I run Irelia, I try to position her so that she fights the enemy infiltrators when they jump to our side. To give an example, this is how I position her in Cybers. Also, Infiltrator Irelia is still very strong. Question 13. What are the best mech items right now? Does it depend on what kind of comp you're playing? And yes it does, but the best 2 items for mech are still QSS and Bramblevest. This is because we don't want the mech to get Zephyr'd or CC'd so hard that it doesn't ult. We want Bramblevest so the mech won't get one-shotted by a Jhin or an Irelia. Third item depends a bit on the comp you're playing. If you're running mech sorcerers, then Ionic Spark is a great third item for the mech. The mech will survive long enough for the Surge to deal a lot more damage while the other team has lower magic resist. For the mech infiltrators, you want a third tank item so that the enemy carries are targeting the mech longer, resulting in your infiltrators doing more work. In that case, the third item wants to be a tank item, either Dragonclaw, Warmugs, Titan's Resolve, Shroud, or Frozen Heart. Question 15. Why are sorcerer teams so unreliable? The problem with 6 Sorc is that Riven is your only frontline. It works very similarly to 6 Dark Stars where you have to kill the entire enemy team before your Riven dies. The way to get more stability is to have better items for Riven, which is what you prioritize in 6 Sorcerers. The best item for Riven is Deathcap, GA, Ionic Spark, Bramblevest, and QSS. You pick 3 out of these 5, but at least 1 Deathcap on Riven is core in my opinion. Thank you so much for watching. If you learned something, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you want to get better at TFT and partake in the next Q&A video, join the Discord. It is filled with hundreds of other TFT players who are hungry to climb. And if you want to get coached by me, the information is over on the Discord as well. So take care, and see you in the next video.